Happy Friday, my fantasy fanatics. It's the latest edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, coming in hot with everything that you need to know from across the NHL, line combos, injury updates, and a whole bunch more. Let's tap in and get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, my fantasy fanatics. As I said off the jump, this is the September 26th episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and shout out to the everydayers who continue to make us their first listen every single day. The NHL is a buzz, my friends, and Steele and I will be here to break down everything that you need to know. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, where you put down $5 and win your bet as a new customer, you get $300 back in bonus bets. Mr. Rodin, major injury news, line combos catching our eye. The Utah Mammoth, New Jersey Devils, San Jose Sharks have some interesting things cooking here with some new line combos that we'll get to at the end of the episode. But when we have major names going down with injury, most notably Sasha Barkov, Alexander Barkov, however you want to call it, we'll get to Jamie Benn. But why don't we start with these Florida Panthers, because this is a serious blow to a three-peat Cup champion look.
Yeah, I think all Florida Panther fans and all fantasy owners of Alexander Barkov are holding their breath right now, because that didn't look good, especially with when you watch the video, which I want to bring up right now. Actually, when you watch the video, looks like a nothing play. It's a non-contact injury, and I mean, just if you're watching on YouTube, I'll let the video speak for itself.
I'm loving this video in terms of being able to watch it. Sorry, I don't want to see a guy.
Yeah, no, it's just it's a mind tweaker. I mean, it doesn't look like anything really happens. He kind of just goes down, and I mean, you can see it right there. He needs help off the ice. He can't put any pressure on that right leg. It looks like something to do with his ACL, maybe MCL in that knee area.
Yeah.
And yeah, all fans are holding their breath right now, because that's not good for Alexander Barkov, especially if he's one of your keepers in a dynasty format in a year-to-year league. This changes exactly where you're going to draft him. He falls down the draft board, especially if he's missing the first couple of weeks, maybe first month of the hockey season. And again, that kind of speaks volumes to what opportunity brings to a guy like Sam Bennett, to a guy like Anton Lundell, who we've spoken about as a streaming option. And we actually haven't spoken enough about Sam Bennett, but yeah, if you're watching that video, I'll replay it once over. I mean, that just looks a little funky. It looks a little funky, and something's not right.
It doesn't exactly play into how much pressure could potentially land on the secondary players, Steele. However, in terms of fantasy, Anton Lundell, in the short term here, more minutes need to be eaten up the middle. Alexander Barkov has been nothing short of one of the best forwards in the business over the last number of years, Steele. And when you look at his numbers to try and replicate from a fantasy perspective, last year, 67 games, 20 goals, 51 assists in his career, basically a point per game player, 782 points. He also is one of those guys who is just so unbelievably clutch. He's a regular Selke. Well, I think he's got a couple of Selkies in the trophy case now, but he's just one of the best two-way forwards that I know I have ever seen play the game. And let's be clear, he has been a major reason why this Florida Panthers team has had the success it has had. Leadership, quality, shutting down the opponent's number one guy. Those don't all translate into fantasy. But what does here straight up, Steele, is a concern now for these other pieces that I think would have been a whole lot more attractive if Matthew Tkachuk and Alexander Barkov are in the lineup. So when you look around, especially at a guy like Carter Verhaeghe, who I've been talking about a huge bounce back, now that pivot in there that Barkov has, that he creates for his teammates, obviously, Sam Reinhart is still Sam Reinhart. But after that, we might need to really look at, of course, what this does to the team in the standings, but what this might mean to these peripheral pieces, fantasy-wise, around Barkov in the top six and on that power play. Two big injuries here for Florida to navigate.
It is two big, significant injuries for the Florida Panthers, but I believe with how the way Paul Maurice coaches this team, it shouldn't factor too heavily into where they're going to finish in the standings because they play a very mean, tight, ferocious type of hockey game,
That's a fact.
hockey style. And so I think it has a little bit more to do with the fantasy aspect, the fantasy value of some of those guys. I think it puts a lot more pressure on a guy like Carter Verhaeghe. So maybe you could expect him to shoot to shoot the puck a little bit more. You can expect some offensive upside. I think again it goes into speaking volumes for what a guy like Sam Bennett can bring into the lineup if he moves into that number one center position, because he had a career year last year, 51 points in 76 games, 90 penalty minutes, 145 shots, 241 shots.
Right.
It's a banger league beauty for Sam Bennett. And if his opportunity and his ice time is increasing with potentially Barkov out of the lineup, you got to keep that in mind. Start shifting some places with where you're ranking these Florida Panthers players. And a guy like Carter Verhaeghe, Sam Bennett, they might move up the rankings and up the draft board, while a guy like Barkov and Tkachuk slide down.
I'm going to say Sam Bennett for show, because now they need him to fill that number one power play unit in terms of the guy under center. And why I'm a little bit wary of Verhaeghe, and you know how much I love this player, you know, the down year that he had, quote unquote. And I'm not trying to take away from Sam Bennett, but he is not the distributor or the skater that Alexander Barkov is. So this is just one of those things, Steele, and thank you for bringing up that video, is we've been mentioning it all week. Now that real news and real hockey is approaching, almost as important as having a good draft is knowing what to do after that draft. And that, or even before it, is going to be critical to staying on top of all of these injuries. And we mentioned it yesterday. It's going to happen. And until October 7th and that puck drops, the more that you can stay tapped in, I guarantee you your draft night will go more smoothly. Jamie Benn, Dallas Stars, over to you. I know this is a veteran you've relied on in your fantasy circles. You've spoken a little bit about him. He's out. He got hurt in the preseason game the other night. What's your take on this situation? Another opportunity situation, I think, for minutes to be filled.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a scary situation. Yeah, a
lot of
collapsed
situations
lung from Jamie Benn. Yeah, you know, a collapsed lung. It was a collapsed lung. He had surgery. I mean, he's going to be out for the first 4 weeks. I just spoke about Jamie Benn being a really good sleeper option, streaming option throughout the season, and that's now what he becomes. You're not drafting this player at this point. He's out for the first 4 weeks. There's no reason to, because he was already in that bottom 6 tier of the Dallas Stars. He was as a sleeper pick, again, banger league kind of guy with the last 3 picks of your draft. And it's just a weird injury. I mean, you don't really see it that often, especially while they're in a preseason game. Collapsed lung, he has surgery, hoping for the best for Jamie Benn and a speedy recovery, because he's still a vital part of the Dallas Stars, captain for the team. And I mean, it's a scary situation for sure.
Let's get on to the meat and potatoes of today's episode. We will always bring you guys the NHL news that's impacting fantasy squads, but we'll always bring a fantasy angle. And Steele, I can't wait for October 7th, because that means the last segment of every show, our betting breakdowns, our locks of the night. We got to throw some money in the pocketbook, Steele. You know, we got a couple of degenerate bettors on this podcast. However, when we look at line combinations, this is a fun thing to dig into as a fantasy GM. And in, preseason games, you can pay attention. I don't need to preamble anymore. The Utah Mammoth here, bring in JJ Peterka. And right now, I know Logan Cooley has been quote unquote banged up the last couple of days. They're going easy with him. He's day to day. He's going to be fine. Gunther, Cooley, Peterka, Steele, a new line that's catching my attention. Tell me if I'm wrong here, but I am really excited about what this group does as a whole. But this top line, it could be dangerous.
It really can. And I'm not sure if I want it to stay like this, even though it is a very dangerous line, Peterka, Cooley, Gunther. I would really like to see Clayton Keller on that top line with Gunther and Cooley.
Of course.
Or even on that top line with Peterka and Cooley. However, this top 6 in Utah, it is legit. It is real. You got to keep your eyes peeled for all these young studs, young guns ready to rock and roll for Utah. I really like this team. And when we get to our division breakdowns, division predictions for are they going to make the playoffs, are they not, Utah is going to be up there for me. I really like the way this team is shaping out to be right now. Still some improvements to be had on the blue line, of course, but JJ Peterka, 68 points in 77 games played last year, career high. Blocks, hits, not part of his game. Shots on goal, a little bit down from the year prior, but the shooting percentage was up to 15.6. And now he's really in an area where, not that he has to be that guy, like, it was kind of tough for him in Buffalo because of how good Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck and all those other guys were. But JJ Peterka is in a really good situation now with Utah out west. And again, like I said, ready to rock and roll on a new season.
And these lines are catching our eyes. Are they going to finalize that way? Most likely not for some of them, but you need to know what's going on. And taking Utah last year, power play 24%, 10th best in the NHL. Overall goals for, though, they fell outside of the top half. And I'm telling you, that will be different this year, and that means you want to invest in these pieces. We'll look at a few other interesting line combos after the break, and these might be the players that you need to take your team over the top. We'll talk about it. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. NFL season is here. Make sure you're ready to go with a can't-miss offer from FanDuel, where new customers right now bet $5, and if it hits, $300 back in bonus bets. Steele and I absolutely love the FanDuel app, and it's about to heat up heavy with NHL betting. Live, same-game parlays, future bets, easy, secure cash outs. There is no better app to beat on sports than the FanDuel Sportsbook app. If you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app today. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
We love the FanDuel app, and the FanDuel app loves us, especially with how much we've invested over the last couple of years with those big-time bets. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review, share with your friends and family out there. We really do appreciate it. Flip, any final words on JJ Peterka in the projection for this top line? You want to go to the New Jersey Devils? You want to go to the San Jose Sharks? Talk about some new lines that are shaping up with those franchises. Where do you want to go first?
Let's go to the New Jersey Devils because you've mentioned Timo Meier. I really like that angle. You take a look at some of these players they have in the mix deal. Connor Brown was an addition in the offseason. They got Timo Meier, who you highlighted, Mercer, Heischer, Palat. I love a player like Cody Glass on the third line. He was a high draft pick. I think they've put together a really good group here. They also have Markstrom in the cage. The key is Jack Hughes. And we've spoken about this at length. All I will say is you've got Evgeny Dadonov here on this top line with Jesper Bratt and Jack Hughes. This is simple here for me, Steele. Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt, people are going to be all over him. I think even Jesper Bratt, with the season he had last year and what he's been progressing towards, a really kind of 80-plus point player, those guys are going to be gone unless you've invested high stock in them. Evgeny Dadonov is looking like a really sneaky pick here, Steele. A guy who has shown he's got some offensive upside. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but I know that he could be one of those steals of the draft near the back end of it. So when we talk about early line combinations that are catching my attention, and I look at what the New Jersey Devils should be doing offensively, even though last year they sat 20th in the NHL in goals for, I think this could be a really sneaky pick and a really good line, at least offensively, to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of came into the league hot and heavy. I mean, he started as a 20-year-old with the Florida Panthers, played minimal games, 15, 30 games throughout the first couple of years. Went back to the KHL, I believe, and then he came back with Florida in 2017, and he came in hot and heavy. I mean, he really started his career 65 points, 70 points, 47 points. He's kind of been up and down a little bit. Now that he's 35 years old, I think he's still pretty solid and good for 35, 40 points. But if he's playing in the top six in New Jersey and playing with guys like Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt, that brings a ton of value and a ton of stock going into this upcoming year. I don't know if it completely sticks throughout the entire season.
Thank you for saying that.
For a guy who had 20 goals, 20 assists, 40 points in 80 games, doesn't shoot the puck a ton, but still had a 16.3 shooting percentage last year. Actually, a better shooting percentage the year prior at 17.9. So over the last couple of years, he's finding ways to put the puck in the back of the net, and I think that has to do obviously with guys that he's surrounded with. He's been in some fortunate. He's been on some fortunate teams, playing with some fortunate line mates throughout the last couple of seasons of his career. Gets a really good opportunity in New Jersey with Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt. Even if he moves down to that second line with Nico Hischier and Dawson Mercer, still very solid line mates to play with. So I like that you brought him up. Very sneaky addition to this team. And, it could be a game changer. They need some of that veteran presence in that top line to help these young guys.
You really nailed it at the end there, because look, he's 35, 36 years old. This isn't something where I'm telling you to go. Like, I honestly mean this as he could be that nice, and I think we've thrown this out there a few times, that last piece that you augment your forward roster with, perhaps, Steele, and you nailed it with, if he sticks with this line, is where the attractiveness comes. The New Jersey Devils, I'm not going to say people are sleeping on them as a team with 91 points, finished third in the Metro last year. I don't think they're talking enough about the Timo Meyers of the world, some of these underrated pieces that the Devils should provide. I think people are overlooking them. So that's why I wanted to show some love to Evgeny Dadonov. Look, Nico Hischier had a really good year last year. I haven't heard anyone, and maybe we're a fault of that too, say anything about Nico Hischier. He had a sensational year last year. Dawson Mercer had a down season. I get it, and expectations were high. A little bit of a fantasy darling looking how good he was the year before. They have options here, and I think there's going to be a ton of fantasy value to be had. The San Jose Sharks, though. Jeff Skinner right now is playing on the top line. This is Old Man Winter with the two young boys. This one might be the most exciting one of the whole bunch, Steele, and I know I was kind of fired up for Daddy in this previous tape. Macklin, Celebrini, and Will Smith are worth the price of admission. And now you got Jeff Skinner in there, pressure off, playing in San Jose. This could be fantasy fool's gold. I want your take on it. Maybe reel me back in, because we know Jeff Skinner didn't exactly jump off the page with his Edmonton stint, and his better days are behind him. Reel me in if you think this is crazy. But when I looked at every single team today. I know that sounds degenerate considering how busy I am.
Hey, that's what we do.
I looked at every single team, and this one jumped off the page for me. We're loving Macklin Celebrini this year and a little bit of a Sharks come up. Over to you. What do you think about Jeff Skinner? Could be maybe a nice week one stream.
I just think it's hilarious, because I was literally just talking about how it didn't pan out for him with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Zach Hyman in Edmonton. True. And now it's supposedly supposed to work out with Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith in San Jose. And it possibly could be. Like you said, he doesn't have to be in that bright light. He doesn't have to be playing with one of the best players in the world that we've ever seen in the last 20 years. He gets an opportunity with some really young guys, really talented players in Celebrini and Will Smith and all William Eklund, Michael Misa potentially. You have another veteran in Tyler Toffoli. It's an interesting situation because it wasn't too long ago where he did have a career year, 82 points in 79 games, 242 shots, and I still think this is a guy that can have over 240 plus shots in a season, which he's almost done every single season throughout his career. I'm not saying he's going to get back to 80 plus points, but with Celebrini and Will Smith and those guys in the mix, 50, 60, maybe 65 points on the high end with 200, 220 plus shots, that is some sneaky good value for a guy who was only playing 12 and a half minutes of average ice time last year. There's opportunity for him to get 16 and a half.
I think there's still some in the tank here, and I know this might be a bit of a brazen take, and I'm not saying draft him. I mean, double circle the name. There are going to be a couple of spots that you are going to need to fill a roster hole at the start of the year, and you might want to thank me when I've circled Jeff Skinner if he sticks with Celebrini and Will Smith on that top line. I think the Sharks score goals this year, so sue me if you think I'm completely off the page. Let's talk about a couple of other of these combos, Steele. At least the Winnipeg Jets second line. Jonathan Toews is back in the mix. Let's talk about it. We'll be here with a Mock Draft Monday special as well. Back over to you. Let's get after it.
Yeah, a few new line combos to keep your eye on for Chicago with Bedard. Philadelphia with Michkov and Zegras, like you just said. Winnipeg with Jonathan Toews and Gustav Nyquist with your boy, Cole Perfetti. Let's talk about that first after the break on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button. Leave a 5-star review for your boys here. Some new line combos from what we've seen in the preseason, from what we've seen at training camp, practices. Winnipeg Jets. Obviously it's interesting for Jonathan Toews to come back and get an opportunity with them after not playing the last few seasons. But even bringing in Gustav Nyquist, I sort of slightly touched on that when we did the Central Division sleeper picks. Okay. Could you maybe put some faith into Jonathan Toews and Nyquist, who had a really good season last year, and now playing with your boy, Cole Perfetti? How do you feel about that second line? Like, do you think that is a line that can actually provide a lot of consistent offensive prowl and offensive capabilities, especially with that top line being so front heavy with Scheifele and Kyle Connor?
I think at this point of the preseason, Steele, anyone who is overly confident in that happening might just be buying into this a little bit too much. Jonathan Toews lived in the other side of the planet in a hut in the middle of nowhere for the last year. I love Johnny T. I love what he's done. He is a great leader, player, and a winner. I need to see what he can do on the ice. This is a great story. Gustav Nyquist is older than I am, and I'm old. So those are two risky things here. I love Cole Perfetti. I really do. And actually, seeing him on the top power play unit, Steele, I think now this is finally, after 3 years of telling you he's going to pop off, he's really going to pop off. But what I would like to say about this line combination is, if they do find some chemistry, if Cole Perfetti does take the step that we expect, they could be the perfect balance of veteran leadership, two-way players, a kid with some flair who can skate, Gustav Nyquist, who has been steady as she goes offensively. It could work. This is another one of those spots where I got to highlight it. You got to take a look. It's kind of risky, though, isn't it? Gustav Nyquist, a veteran of a number of different teams now at this point, switches cities once again. Yeah. Johnny T hasn't played. Young player in Cole Perfetti who has had growing pains. This team is just that good, though, I think, Steele, that the risk that you're taking here with these two older veteran players, it might be perfect pairing up with Cole Perfetti. So my final answer is wait and see, but I think it could be sexy for at least Cole Perfetti.
I think the same can also be said back out east with the Philadelphia Flyers with Trevor Zegras and his new team, his new line mates too. Matvei Michkov, Sean Couturier. You got Noah Cates in the mix, Christian Dvorak on that top line with Zegras and Michkov. It could pan out. It's a lot riskier, like you just said, and this is one that I really have to be against. Until again, Zegras is young, he's talented. We've seen it before. He came in, at pretty much at a superstar level when he came into the National Hockey League with his Michigan being on the front cover of NHL 25, I believe it was, or 24. And it's been a long road the last two seasons for Trevor Zegras. Hasn't quite been there between the ears. Mentally hasn't been there. Skill and talent wise, we know what we've seen and the potential of him reaching those ceilings. But the consistency, his work ethic being a huge part of the reason of why he was traded, I believe, to the Philadelphia Flyers. How do you feel with him being in this new setting? He's back with his best buddy, Jamie Drysdale, once again. But until I see him actually show a change, I'm staying away from him fantasy-wise.
He's just starting to catch some attention for some reason, and I've seen a few comments on the channel dropping, saying maybe he could be a bounce-back candidate. This is where I have to come on. I'm excited about the other ones that we said. Trevor Zegras is not a player I'm thinking about. I need to see multiple weeks, or at least a couple of weeks. I guess that's still multiple, of doing something in terms of offensive production. And that's all I really want to leave it at, Steele. The Philadelphia Flyers as well last year, the 76 points, the bottom of that division, we know how much the New York Islanders and Pittsburgh Penguins struggled. So to finish under those two teams, I think tells you all you need to know about investing in any of these pieces. You said it yourself. The blue line is pretty average. We like Travis Sanheim in deeper leagues for some peripheral coverage, but he doesn't jump off the page as an elite player. The goaltending, we liked Samuel Urson as a very deep cut sleeper if you're looking for a second or third goalie, but think about it and be careful with what you're doing with the Philadelphia Flyers. And if I hear about Trevor Zegras even one more time in the comments, I can get a little bit upset. However, we got more to cover next week, and we'll be back with all of those angles.
And just to bring this episode full circle, I'm seeing right now on my phone, there is internal concern that Alexander Barkov's injury could involve his ACL. So what we expected, what we assumed it, and that is a scary situation, a scary sight for their captain to go down. Man. So keep that in mind.
That's huge.
That's big news. That is big news for your fantasy draft.
Big news.
Keep that in mind before drafting this player, in the third, in the fourth round. Mm-hmm. Keep your eyes peeled on the news. We'll keep our tabs open as well. Get all the insight and all the information you need as fast as possible for you to make the smart decisions with your fantasy draft. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, and leave a 5-star review. Next Monday, our last Monday mock draft. Stay tuned for that episode as well. And all the episodes throughout the month of October and for the rest of the season. We're going to be breaking it down for you here on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast.